On this week's video, we're going to talk to you about our cost of living. How much does it actually cost to live on the island? What are our rough monthly expenses? Just to give you an idea of the different costs here and how that compares to the UK. Household bills is probably the most obvious place to start.
We'll talk about utilities. So first thing to bear in mind is that we don't have any gas here. It's only electricity, and it's not like the UK where you've got maybe a dozen or more electricity firms to choose from. There's really only one or two, and we use Endesa. We have no heating costs either, and we don't have air conditioning, so just bear that in mind. And they tend to bill every 2 months.
Yeah, so it's not a set regular monthly bill, but what we've done is we've gone through our bills for the last 12 months and then taken an average so that we can give you a fairly good idea of what monthly expenses would be like here. It's also worth noting that we do have a swimming pool, so that requires the pump to be running we have it on 6 hours every day. But our electricity costs average out to about €72 a month.
And we pay that by direct debit.
Yeah, so I think that's quite a reasonable price. It's not a lot cheaper than the UK, but it's certainly a little bit cheaper considering usage.
Yeah, and like I said, they've pretty much got the monopoly, so there's not a lot you can do if you didn't like the price.
No.
Really. There's different tariffs you can choose.
But yeah, that's quite affordable. As Sarah said, we don't have any gas at all in the property. We've got no heating sources, so we don't even have an electric heater that we plug in. We just don't need it.
I've never needed one. Put a jumper on or a cardi if necessary when it's very cold, but that's not often.
And likewise in the summer, we don't even have a fan or anything or any air conditioning.
Just open the windows.
The house stays reasonably cool with the way that it's built. So yeah, nice and easy, no gas bills to worry about. So that's a big saving on what we used to pay in the UK.
Yeah.
Then water costs. The water company is quite sporadic in terms of the billing. So sometimes it's every 2 months, sometimes it's every 3 months.
Well, and they never actually send me a bill. With Endesa, I do get there's an app you can use, and I can see exactly how much electricity we're using. With the water, I don't get a bill. It just comes out by direct debit usually every 2 months, but it's no set date. Sometimes it's every 3 months.
We do see them occasionally come round and actually read the meters.
Yeah.
So they do that, but we don't actually get a physical bill that accompanies it. But it works out about €15 a month. So
it's cheap.
Yeah, very cheap compared to other countries, I think.
But again, bear in mind that's just to supply us with water. We don't have any sewage system attached to our house.
No, we have our own tank, and that kind of self-manages itself almost. We don't have to do anything with that. It just removes all the grey wastewater. So
that's a nice way of putting it, grey wastewater.
Yeah, I think that's the technical correct term, but yeah. And then we've got the equivalent of council tax here, which is called IBI, and that's taken out of the bank account once every year. So yeah, the equivalent of council tax in the UK, and this is one of the huge savings that we've seen.
So taxes generally here are cheaper, aren't they?
Yeah, but I mean it's only €165 a year here, which is, if you're living in the UK, most people are paying council tax bills that probably that every month.
Yeah.
So
probably was when we were in the UK.
Yeah, a big saving.
And again, that's euros, remember, not pounds. So.
Yeah. So all of these are in euros, but I'll convert them on the screen, so you'll have already seen the pound equivalent when we do the editing. There's then a separate charge that they take for basura, which is basically the rubbish collection service, and that's an annual bill of €28, which again is like
I mean it's slightly different to being in the UK. You don't have your own personal bins that you put out, but there's various bins that are just out on the street, and there's normally one that's just literally a couple of minutes walk away, and you put all your rubbish in there, and they come and empty them every single day except for Sundays.
Yeah, so it's a really good service for what they charge for it. There's separate recycling bins as well, so we can separate stuff out. But yeah, nice and easy, and you don't have to have rubbish sat on your property, in hot days waiting for a weekly collection. So nice and easy. There's then things like our house insurance. So we use one company that insures the buildings and the contents, and we pay €260 a year.
And we use the Spanish equivalent of Direct Line, so it's Línea Directa. But they have English-speaking people, which makes it a little bit easier. And also, similar to Direct Line, you can kind of haggle a little bit on the phone with them, which I tend to have to do because they try to put it up every year.
Yeah, it's similar insurance practices to other places, so they don't tend to automatically give you a discount at renewal time, but if you phone them up and ask, then it suddenly gets a little bit cheaper.
If you phone them up and threaten to leave, it suddenly gets cheaper. Yeah.
But yeah, that's quite a reasonable cost for what we insure. I should say as well with these prices, our property is a detached 3-bedroomed house, to give you an idea. So this is costs for obviously appropriate to the size of our house. If you lived in a small apartment, some of these things would obviously be a bit cheaper. But yeah, just to give you an idea. We should probably talk about car ownership, because that's another thing to factor in. When we moved to the island, we decided that we only needed one car between the two of us, because obviously we're not going out to separate jobs every day, and obviously we tend to spend a lot of time together.
Yeah, I mean, our thought process has changed over time, didn't they, with this? Because I think initially we were going to get a car each, but second-hand. I had kind of this romantic vision of having a Mark 1 Audi TT, which is a car I've always liked. I'd had a Mark 2 as part of my job a few years ago, but I always fancied having a Mark 1. But we quickly found out that used car prices here are quite a bit more expensive than they are back in the UK. So, for example, using the Mark 1 TT, when I was looking, there were about £3,000 for one in mint condition, whereas here
in the UK,
in the UK, there were about £3,000, whereas here there were about €6,000, so roughly double. So we kind of changed our thought processes around that.
Yeah, I think, just touching on the used car market here, it's obviously a case of supply and demand. We live on a relatively small island. Prices of most goods tend to hold their value quite well, because obviously it's just the way that demand is on the island. But what we found when we were looking at second-hand cars is that they were often seemingly very expensive for what they were.
Yeah.
And you didn't really know what you were buying. Obviously, we're not mechanics, so whilst we've got a reasonably good eye, we wouldn't have been able to check out things ourselves. You don't get warranties and things on second-hand cars.
It would have been tricky, I guess, getting parts as well for used cars. And the other thing then, we were kind of thinking, well, what about buying a new car? Because the equivalent to VAT here is only 7%. Buying a new car is much cheaper than buying one in the UK. Plus, we know from the used car prices that they hold their value. So we thought, after talking about it for a while, it would make more sense to buy a new car, which would then last us, 10 years or whatever, and then we'd be able to sell it on with less depreciation than we would have back in the UK, probably.
Yeah, so that's ultimately what we did. We bought one brand new car, which obviously came with dealership warranty, much lower running costs, obviously initially. Obviously, the longer we keep the car, those will increase. But at the moment, we're estimating maintenance to be about €160 a year, and that includes the annual service from the main dealership. So we bought a brand new Honda Civic. We looked at a few cars, but that one was the best for us.
It was the best for the money, yeah.
Size and all of the options that came on it as standard, rather than needing to tick loads of boxes.
And it looked nice.
Looks nice, it drives nice. Japanese cars, tend to be very reliable.
Yeah, and they tend to last.
We've had it, how long? Almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's been really good so far, no problems with it. Insurance for that is €376 a year. We pay all our insurance and everything yearly, just because it tends to be a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
And we prefer just to get it out the way in terms of the costs.
And again, that's with Línea Directa, and I think because we have both our house and car insurance with them, we get a little extra discount.
But it really wasn't much difference in insurance costs when we were looking at it either, to have a brand new car versus a second-hand car. So that was another reason to go for a new car. You also don't need to do the equivalent of an MOT, which is called an ITV here, until the car is 4 years old. So that's something else that we haven't had to think about just yet. It'll be another year before we have to do that.
I mean, something else to just mention here is that neither of us had any no claims. because we both had company cars in our previous job, so we were kind of starting from scratch, so that made a difference as well.
Yeah, and it is slightly different here with the way that insurance works, because it tends to be the car that's insured rather than the person, and then it's usually anybody over the age of 25 can drive with the owner's permission, so you don't need to add lots of named drivers on like you do in the UK. So that's a little bit different. Petrol prices, they're a lot cheaper here.
Yes, and even cheaper at the moment since the pandemic. That I think that's a global thing. Prices have dropped everywhere, haven't they? But definitely cheaper than the UK.
Yeah, so at the moment we're paying 91 cents per litre.
Yeah, and that's for unleaded petrol.
Yeah,
but that's what we drive.
So that equates to about 81 pence on today's exchange rate. So that is quite a big saving, I'd say, over UK prices. A lot of that is probably just taxes, I would imagine.
Yeah, the most I've ever seen it here is about €1 a litre. I don't think it's gone over that.
And we probably spend, obviously this will vary dependent upon how much you use your car, but we probably spend around €50 a month on fuel.
Yeah, it depends obviously how much we're driving around and whether we're going up to, Coraleca or down to Morahabla or whatever, or just tootling around locally.
But other than that, we haven't really had any other associated costs with the car yet. So.
Well, the only other thing is our equivalent to road tax, which is actually paid through the council, so that's slightly different. And again, that just comes out once a year, and it always comes out in October. It doesn't matter when you got the car, when you registered it, or anything.
Yeah, and if you're not already sitting down watching this video, now is the time to sit down, because how much is our annual? Well, this is an annual.
When I went to pay it for the first time, I nearly dropped, but it was €15.75, €15
and 75 cents. Which is
for a year.
Ridiculous.
I don't really know how that works. And the roads here are okay. They're not brilliant all the time, but that's next to nothing, isn't it? It's hardly worth paying.
It's crazy. Right, the other thing that we have, which is kind of a fixed expenditure for us, we're under retirement age, obviously. Which means that we are responsible for our own healthcare. Because we've come here as early retirees and we don't pay into the Spanish system through obviously usual salary and taxation, we have to be able to prove that we can support ourselves, and one of those things is being responsible for our own healthcare. So we have a private healthcare policy, and the annual cost of that for both of us is €1,093 a year.
Yeah, we did shop around, and we were with another firm previously, but we got a better deal this time. But it goes basically on your age. It doesn't really matter what your medical history is, which can be an advantage or a disadvantage, I suppose. I thought it was a disadvantage to me because I haven't got any medical problems, so I thought I might get some sort of discount for that, but it doesn't work like that.
No, it does tend to go based on age. I think if you've got any serious pre-existing conditions, obviously you have to declare them. And then whether or not they may then say they want an extra premium. But in our experience, the quote is just based purely off your age, and then they came back with a price, and then you just fill in the health questionnaire, and it was as simple as that, really. So obviously we're ticking no to everything.
Yeah,
it might be for other people, it might be a bit more expensive.
And that being said, it's considerably less to what we were paying in national insurance at home, and I've had to use it a couple of times. Most recently when I broke my collarbone back in May, and it was very, very easy to use. There's a list of hospitals or whatever for you to use, and it was a good service. It was very quick, and there was no problems at all.
Yeah, just to give you an idea, we live about 20 minutes drive to the private hospital in Puerto del Rosario, but to drive you there to be seen by a doctor, have pain relief, an x-ray, and then a prescription for some pain meds.
And a sling.
We sling. We were back home within 2.5 hours, and that included a trip to the pharmacy on the way back. Yeah. So
I'd probably still be sat in A&E in
the
UK if it was the same situation.
Obviously it's a different system for us, but our experience of it has been very good so far. We don't have any prescription costs included in the insurance. You have to pay those separately. But as Sarah said, neither of us are on any ongoing medication, so that would only start to become a factor we needed to be for whatever reason.
The only thing, while I think about it, because I might forget it later on, is that you can't buy things like paracetamol, ibuprofen and kind of standard drugs like that in the supermarkets here. You have to buy them from a pharmacy, so that they tend to be a bit more expensive, don't they?
Yeah, it's not like your 20p packs of regular painkillers, but I mean they're not mega expensive. It is just a bit more expensive than the UK. So that's health insurance. And that's kind of really all of our fixed bills, I'd say. Then we've got to talk about groceries, which is probably our biggest expenditure every month.
We like our food.
Yeah, now...
And a little bit of drink.
I suppose the caveat on this is that these prices are going to depend on how much you tend to go and buy from the supermarket.
Yeah, and what you buy.
And what you buy. We love to cook, so we cook everything from scratch. We always buy lots of fresh fruit and veg. Yeah. We don't go mad on branded goods particularly. There's a couple of things that we may get from Spar, which is the place to typically get branded goods, or one of the British shops that are on the island. But typically our weekly grocery bill is probably around €120, and that will include everything, like toiletries, booze, cleaning products for the house. We don't have any pets, but obviously they sell pet food and things in the supermarkets here. So that I'd say is on the higher side, but that just suits our lifestyle. We have, we tend to eat pretty much all of our meals at home. We eat out probably roughly once a month.
But even then, that's probably not much over £100 a week, and I think we probably used to spend at least as much as that, probably slightly more when we were living in the UK.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I would say that the supermarkets here are probably about 10% cheaper than the UK.
For most things, yeah.
Certain things are more expensive and certain things are a lot cheaper, like alcohol here. So we've picked out some prices to give you some idea of comparisons of certain, mainly branded items. So we'll start with alcohol because that's the one thing that I'd say is considerably cheaper here versus the UK, and a lot of that is probably going to be based on tax. But we went and had a look, and a litre bottle of either Smirnoff vodka or Gordon's gin, they're both the same price here, they're around €11.50. And the same bottles in the UK are around £20.
Yeah, so I mean that's about half the price, isn't it? And they're in Spar. Spar tends to do the more branded items, particularly with alcohol.
In terms of wine, we find that Lidl is actually a really good place for alcohol generally.
Yeah.
You'll see bottles of wine here starting as low as sort of 99 cents a bottle.
Yeah, we've never tried those.
We've never sampled those just because we assumed it's probably not a good idea. But we've certainly tried to sample several of the mid-range bottles, haven't we, just to get an idea of...
Not even mid-range. I mean, I bought a bottle of Rioja last week, white Rioja, and it was like $2.30, something like that, and it was really good, really nice. And the Cava that we buy from Lidl, and that's $1.89.
And it's really good.
It is really good, and actually going back to vodka, because most of the time I drink the vodka from Lidl because it's 5 times distilled. It's really nice, and for a 500ml bottle, so it's a smaller one, but it's $4.99, and it used to be $4.49. It's recently gone up.
Yeah. So actually, like per litre, that's not too much different from the Smirnoff, but we just prefer the Lidl one.
Well, I don't like
Smirnoff.
Nicer. I like Stolly if I'm going to get a branded one.
Yeah. In terms of red wines, which is what I prefer to drink, I tend to go for one that's between sort of €3 and €4 a bottle, and there's various ones in that price range that are actually really nice wines. In terms of the supermarkets that we visit, we do split the shop across different supermarkets. That's mainly due to availability of things rather than anything else. But we do the majority of our shop at Mercadona.
Yeah.
So that would be obviously, I don't know, things like cheese, dairy stuff.
Yeah, most of our kind of cleaning products, things like meat and fish, we tend to buy from there, don't we?
Yeah, and then we do some at Lidl. So what do we get from Lidl? So
things like, I like their Greek yoghurt, cottage cheese, like a lot of their cheeses I prefer, actually.
They do a lot of, we tend to eat very healthily.
And they do really nice veggie burgers.
So yeah, things like quark, low-fat Greek yogurts, cottage cheese.
And the booze. Most of our booze comes from that.
Yeah. And then we get all of our fresh fruit and veg from a local place called Franenkemi, which is just behind Mercadona and Lidl. So they're all in the same place in El Matorral where we shop, but they have local from all of the Canary Islands, but there's quite a lot of local produce here from the island.
Yeah, and it's significantly cheaper than the supermarkets again. I mean, the quality can vary, but most of the stuff is usually pretty good, and anything we can't get from there, we can then get from the supermarket.
But typically, I mean, we used to spend a fortune in the UK on fresh fruit and veg, but we typically fill 2 of the large Bag for Life bags here, and it costs about €15.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say that's at least half, probably even less actually, than what we used to spend on fresh fruit and veg in the UK. There's also the British shops as well. We don't tend to visit those very often, just because obviously they are imported goods, so they are going to be expensive products, and for most things we've found alternatives, or you can find things in the regular supermarkets here.
Yeah, I mean, Spar holds a few like British type brands as well, doesn't it? Like, I mean, occasionally we'll fancy a pucker pie, won't we?
Yeah,
so we'll get those from the Spar.
Yeah, so we looked at a couple of prices of some things in there. So a tin of Heinz beans is around 70 cents, which I was surprised to find actually when I looked at the prices earlier. That's actually cheaper than the UK.
That is a surprise.
But you can only buy single tins here, so I guess in the UK you don't get the multi-pack savings. You wouldn't probably just buy a single tin in the UK, you'd buy a pack, so you can't do that here. So if you're only wanting 1 tin every now and again, it's cheaper, but if it's something you buy a lot of, you'd be paying more just because you're buying them individually. A pack of Bisto gravy granules is €2.75 in Spar, so that's probably about twice the price of the UK. When I looked, it was about £1.30. So there you can see certain products can be a lot more expensive. Groceries is very much going to come down to lifestyle, what you're buying, how often you're buying it. What I'd say is take whatever you're spending in the UK, take 10% off, and that's probably going to be about what you'd spend here. We have a preference to spend more on groceries and eat at home more often, but I guess other people would spend more going out, eating and drinking, and less on groceries. So yeah, it's very much down to personal preference, really.
Oh, we forgot to talk about beer in the supermarket.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's cheaper than a can of Coke, isn't it?
It's very cheap.
So the cheapest can of beer would be about 25 cents here.
Yeah, that's kind of for a very cheap brand, or for a supermarket owned brand, isn't it? But even a branded one is like 50 60 cents.
And then like an imported beer, like a Guinness, something like that, will be a bit more expensive. So yeah, you're looking at about €2.60, something like that.
We're not big beer drinkers, and I'm not keen on lager particularly, so that tends to be most of what's available here, and it's quite gassy. So we don't drink a lot of that. But yeah, if you're a beer drinker, it's cheap.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper. So we had a couple of questions about this section in the Q&A video, so we thought we'd cover it here. So people wanted to know what the internet's like on the island. We've had a mixed experience, haven't we, with internet providers. At the moment, fibre is very much in its infancy on the island. It's only just started to be rolled out, and it's only in certain locations, so it's not something that we can get just at the moment. So there are other providers that provide internet via an antenna that you put on your house. And because of that, it does limit the speed that you can get. And we also found with that there was kind of like a period in the evening where everybody would be logging on at the same time, and it would really slow. Throttle down the speed to the point that it was unusable, really. Yeah,
because we don't watch general kind of TV, but we'll watch maybe something on Netflix or a film or something on YouTube, and it would just slow things down to a point where it would take 3 hours to watch something that was an hour long, because it would just constantly keep buffering. It was just...
Yeah, so we were paying previously, I think it was around €47 a month, and it was 6 megabytes speed, but that 6 megabyte speed wasn't 6, it was more like 1 or 2. So we had to start looking for alternatives, and in the end the best solution we found was to go to the Vodafone shop in Puerto del Rosario, and we took out a mobile phone contract on a SIM-only basis. So we now pay €44 a month, and we have the Vodafone SIM in a third mobile phone, which we use as a hotspot to give the whole of the house Wi-Fi.
Yeah. And we have unlimited data on that, don't we?
Yeah, so we can use as much data as we like. It's at high speed, so we average between 40 to 50 megabyte download speed, and we get about 3 megabyte upload speed. And that gives us unlimited calls and texts as well. So it's given us a Spanish number, but it provides Wi-Fi for the rest of the house, and that's been a lot better since we've gone down that route.
Yeah, it's definitely noticeably better.
We can actually watch things now.
Yeah,
which
without
is good.
bursting into tears or rain.
So on to TV costs. So again, this was a question that we had. As Sarah said, we don't watch a lot of TV. It's not sort of, I know for some people it's constantly on in the background. We don't sort of work like that with TV. We tend to switch it on probably about 6:30, 7, and we'll watch a bit of YouTube or whatever before dinner, and then after dinner we'll watch an episode or two of a box set that we're watching. So we don't tend to watch live TV, although we do have the provision for it through something called IPTV, and this is what a lot of I suppose expats, we don't really like the term expats, but
immigrants.
Yeah, immigrants. This is what a lot of British people will do that move here. It's TV that's provided through the internet. So there's various ways that you can do this. You can either seek out a provider yourself, which tends to be cheaper, but you need a little bit of technical knowledge to get it set up. We use an Apple TV, but some people will use an Amazon Fire Stick or something like that. Obviously, there's no point you talking about this bit.
I don't even know how to switch the TV on. Never mind watch any of these things. So if I'm here on my own for any reason, I mean, I'm not that bothered anyway, but
I'd occasionally get a message saying, how do I do it again?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't happened in the past year, but when you'd gone like away to the UK or something, I'll just use the record player or something.
So yeah, it depends on your technical ability, but if you're fairly, it's not exactly difficult, but some people just prefer an easy, somebody hands them over a box that's already been configured and you plug it in. If you do it that way, it's probably going to cost you, I don't know, between €150 and €200 a year, whereas we pay €35 a year for the TV subscription, and I pay another €20 a year for video on demand, so that gives us access to TV shows, films, all the box sets and things, which is what we prefer to watch. So that's quite affordable.
Probably a lot cheaper than the likes of Sky or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some questionable legality around it, but whilst it's working, it's working.
We'll plead the Fifth Amendment on that one.
We've been watching too many American lawyer shows.
Yeah.
So we're going to add all of that up now and put a number on the screen. All the things that we've mentioned up until now, I would say, are our sort of fixed monthly expenses. So these are things that don't really change over any given month, and things that we kind of would say are fairly essential in terms of living here. There are other things though as well that obviously you would need to factor in if you are planning on moving to the island. So let's briefly talk about property, because I think this is going to be a big one for a lot of people. So explain our situation
Well,
first.
yeah, I mean, we bought this house outright, so we don't have monthly mortgage or rent payments. So obviously if you were coming out here with a mortgage or paying rent, you'd have to add that on to your monthly costs.
So what I've done is I've gone online just to get some example costs for this, just to give you an idea. But I'd absolutely say if this is something that you're thinking about doing, go away and do loads of research on property, speak to 2 or 3 different agents, and really, make sure you come out, view properties in person and get a really good idea for location, because as anywhere with property, location is a huge factor. And you'll see that with the rental prices. So,
And what facilities are included in that as well?
yeah, absolutely. So what we found, there's a website called Idealista, which is a good site for any Spanish property. You can put in locations, you can see listings from various different agents. But I've gone through Caleta de Fuste and some rough rental prices for you. So a studio apartment will be between around 400 to 450 euro a month. A one bed between 500 and 600, two bed between 600 and 700, and then a 3-bed property can be anything upwards from around 750 euro.
And do all of those have access to a pool?
Not, these are just rough prices,
Okay.
so some of them will, some of them won't. Obviously you're going to be at the higher end of the brackets with the more facilities that you've got access to and location. So obviously the Caleta prices, Costa d'Antigua will be, you know, quite a bit cheaper than being actually in the heart of Caleta
You're going to
itself.
pay more for being
So,
in a resort, aren't you?
yeah, so that kind of goes without saying, I think, for most people. What we did find is that Coralejo is more expensive, so you can probably add €100 onto all of those Caleta prices. So 500 to 600 for a studio, 600 to 700 for a one bed, 700 to 800 for a two bed, and 800 upwards for a three bed. And then sort of to give you an idea of villas, so a large detached villa with a pool is going to start probably €1,000 upwards, and that again will depend on location. So they can be, you know, creeping up to 2,000 a month in some locations. So this is something really that you'll need to go away and do some research on if you're considering renting. As we mentioned on the Q&A video, the prices of long-term rents are higher here because there's usually a very strong market for short-term holiday lets. So if an owner's got a nice two-bed property in Coralejo, you know, that they can get, you know, I don't know, 300, 400 euro a week for to a holiday let, they're not going to rent it out for 700 euro a month. So that's why there tends to be a shortage.
They probably would at the moment, but generally speaking.
Yeah, but typically they wouldn't. In terms of house prices, again, to buy, this really varies. The lowest entry point for sort of a studio or a one bed in need of refurbishment probably starts at around €65,000. If you're looking in the heart of a resort, that's going to be a little bit more. And then obviously sort of houses, I'd say probably around 120,000 upwards as a starting point for a smaller two-bedroom property. If you're looking for like a larger villa, something like that, you're probably not going to get much change out of 250,000 euro.
I mean, sometimes bank repossessions come up, don't they? But they don't seem to come up as often as they used to. And often with those as well, they maybe don't have a kitchen or a bathroom, so you've got to factor that cost in as well.
The other thing with bank repossessions here is that you'll often see quite a low headline price in terms of what it's being advertised at, but there'll often be like a bidding process. So that will be a lower price to encourage people to view, but then if there's more than a couple of interested people, they'll ask for like sealed bids. So often the price ends up being higher than the advertised price, and because it comes down to how badly you want somewhere. So yeah, it's important to do your research if you're buying, speak to agents, understand the process, and you need to factor in about 10% on top of the price to cover all of your purchasing costs as well. But at least gives you a bit of an idea. And the other thing we should probably mention is sort of going out, entertainment, and other things that people might want to factor in.
Yeah.
We've got access to a local gym in the next village along that's free of charge to use. But if you were paying to use a gym, which admittedly has better facilities, better equipment, and tends to be, you know, more modern inside, you're probably looking at around €30 a month for gym membership.
Yeah, maybe a bit more for some of them, but yeah, about 30, 40 euros a month. But so usually I use the council run one because it's free to use, but it's been shut for a while.
Yeah, they haven't reopened it.
No.
Well, they did reopen it and then they closed it again.
But all the commercial ones are still open.
Yeah. But typically our other sort of, we don't really have sort of day-to-day entertainment costs as such, because everything that we like doing is outside, like walking, going to the beach.
And we don't go out. that often, do we? It's not like we go out for meals on a daily or even a weekly basis, really, because we just choose not to.
No, I mean, what I'd say is a typical cost of a lunch here. We like the menu del dias because you'll typically get 2 or 3 courses and a drink, and they're usually somewhere between 10 and 15 euro a person. So for us to go out for lunch is probably 35 euro with a tip. If we go out for dinner, we can probably have a 3-course meal for 50 or 60 euro plus whatever the drinks costs are.
Yeah,
and they're not that expensive.
No, it depends
usually.
where you go. And if you go to, one of the more popular places in Caletta, and somewhere we like, is Fado Rock. And the prices in there are really reasonable, aren't they? And for drinks as well.
Yeah, and obviously you'll get a lot of happy hours here in the bars, so the drinks in the supermarket are really cheap, but they're also pretty cheap in bars and restaurants here. So I'd say the average price of a pint of lager here is probably €2. There'll be people in the comments that say, I only pay €1. Yeah, there are going to be loads of happy hours. There may only be certain times.
Yeah, and certain drinks.
We're just talking average prices here. So I'd say about €2 on average. Probably a similar price for a cup of coffee. A similar price.
Yeah, it's usually about €1, 1.50 for a coffee.
Depends where you go again. So I'd say on average probably closer to 2. A glass of wine might be a little bit more expensive, maybe 3, 4 euros.
Spirits, it depends whether you have the branded or the kind of local spirits, but about 4 to 5 euros with a mixer.
Yeah, and cocktails.
And the spirits aren't your kind of single or double measures. They're probably about a quadruple measure.
Yeah, they're hand pours usually.
Yeah,
aren't they?
they're strong.
So strong. Cocktails probably start 5-6 euro upwards, depending on where you go. So you can have a good night out for not an awful lot of money. It's just personal preference for us. We tend to do it about once a month. But even if you factor that in, our monthly expenses is well under £1,000. It's really those fixed costs that we mentioned, plus a few treats every now and again.
Yeah, and for us it has to be as well, because we don't have any income. We don't have any regular income. We don't work. So, we're living off savings and investments up until we're able to draw any kind of pension or anything else. So we're not tight, but we're very, we're very aware of what we can spend.
Yeah, I mean, other things that we've not mentioned, which people might mention in the comments, haircuts. It's about €30 for a cut and blow dry.
Yeah.
It would obviously be cheaper for a men's cut. I've got no idea, but probably no more than about €10.
Yeah. So again, I'd say that's cheaper than, it's certainly cheaper than what I was paying at home.
Yeah. Dental costs, I think, are fairly comparable to the UK. Maybe ever so slightly cheaper, but it's all private here. Yeah. So factor that in and assume it's about the same. There's a cinema in Caleta de Fuste that show English films usually once a week on a Tuesday.
Yeah, we've seen a few there.
So we've been a few times there. I think from memory it's about €6 a ticket, so again slightly cheaper than the UK. I mean, it really varies, cinema costs in the UK. It depends where you go. Obviously the bigger places in the city can be very expensive.
Yeah, and you can get deals through your phone provider and stuff, can't you?
Yeah. But I think we've pretty much covered everything. If there's anything that we've missed, drop it in the comments. We'll try and reply to as many as we can. But thanks once again for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
I'm off to take my clothes off. Bye.